It is a weird, interesting, and complex time we're living in. Because what kinds of skills do we actually need to have? So that is what I would like to tell you a little bit about. And then, of course, I will tell you a little bit about being a pirate, because that's also very important, being a pirate. So, who am I? I'm a pirate queen. That is the way I prefer to present myself. I am the general secretary of Coding Pirates. That sounds a little bit boring. So I'm the pirate queen. And I have a lot of fantastic volunteers behind me in Coding Pirates. And I'll tell you a lot more about Coding Pirates. Then I'm also the initiator of some summits and conferences called Next Generation about kids playing technology. Because I think it's so important that everybody working with kids actually are playful themselves. And they understand how they can disseminate technologies within a playful way with kids. So that's what I'm doing as well. And then I'm an innovator. I just told that I'm doing a robots festival here at Dock 1 in August. I've been a part of the group building this place, developing this place, and a lot of other things, smart city technologies, etc. So I do a lot of different things. And yet, I'm still concerned as to, do I have the real skill sets for in 10 years? Even though I all the times change what I do and how I do it, I'm still wondering, okay, what will my work life be like in 10 years? Hopefully I'll work less hours, but will I have the right skill sets? So this is 0. B, first graders from Aarhus, a school here. The kids are 6 years old. This is in 2018. The kids are building, drawing, telling a story about a city. They are developing their city, what should be in the city, their roads, what should be in a city, their horses. What should there be in a city? We have a zoo. And at some point I asked, okay, do we have people in the city? Yeah, we did. And then they got small line robots, small Osobots, so that they could have them, and they made a hack so that they could customize their small Osobots so that they could make inhabitants for their city. There turned out to be some horses within that as well. But that was a way for them to try to work with creativity and very small scale of technologies. 2018, 6-year-olds. 2022, the same kids. They're now 10 years old. Here they are working with programming. They had workshops about artificial intelligence. Here they are working with small robots. They work with microbits. Within those 4 years, the society began more openly to talk about Metaverse, Snapchat, TikTok, and just from that, or actually just this spring, everybody's talking about ChatGPT. So everything is working so rapidly. And they need to be a part of it. They need to be inhabitants in this. This is me. Sometimes I do stupid things. Like, for instance, walking around at Dock 1 for an entire weekend looking like this. And it was a good thing that I had 10-year-old Norma with me, because that could, in a way, make it okay that I looked weird. We were talking about face recognition, how you can trick a face recognition. The funny thing about that was that in 2019, the face recognition that we used, it worked with a different kind of trends than what the kids here in Aarhus had at that time. Because all the boys, they had long hair and were blonde. And the long hair, that made them all girls. And they were actually a bit annoyed, but it made it a very good opportunity to talk about bias. So we could talk about bias. That was 19. 22. Here they are training. the artificial intelligence. They are training the face recognition. So that means that in that small scale, for these kids, it actually, there has been created new elements, new, quite easy ways to affect technology just within those years for those kids. And we know it ourselves as well. So a couple of years ago, it wasn't that bad man with Twitter. Then once it was another bad man with orange hair. We never know when to be mad at Zuckerberg or when we're not supposed to be mad at Zuckerberg. And things, they change so rapidly. Is metaverse a thing or is it not a thing? Is that the new way that we are all supposed to work or not? How many of you are Danes? Most of you. So most of you will know what I say when I say, okay, then we had NemID, and then we went on to MitID, and then we went on to MitID not working, and then we went on to MitID not working for somebody because they had to travel like all over the world to get here to borgerservice to actually get MitID. So what happens is that we both, when we're professionals and in our private lives, we actually need to cope with this technological development all the time, when we're small and when we are adults, when we are old. The speed changes so rapidly. And I so much understand this girl. And I can't get quite worried. Because some of us know what to do and others don't. And how can we have the responsibility actually to make sure that we have everybody on board? I think that's a very important thing to ask ourselves. But we're working with future skills here today. Where does this actually leave us? Where are we within what we need for future skill sets? Because there are so many things going so rapidly, so many things that we don't know that we can't control. We know that the dialogues about screen time and kids being sad and not going to school and psychiatry, everything is like going up into the air very much. Where does this leave us for the future? Before the industrialization, we were depending on each other. We were a part of a very close, small ecosystem. We had a role to play. We had everything within what we could see. This was our limits. And that was the world we had. That was also the world that could change things for us, generally speaking. And we also knew quite okay what we were supposed to do when we had different kinds of ages. We were born into a specific order. Then we had industrialization. Then suddenly we made a separation of lives. We now went to the factory to work or went to somewhere else to work and left the family. So we made a separation of private and professional lives in another way than we had normally done. That also meant that it was a fragmentation of the ecosystem because it was no longer the kids learning from their parents while being together with them all the time. Now it was more that you needed to get trained up when you came to have your work. It also meant that you needed some new skill sets than before the industrialization, but it went quite slowly. So it was not that you couldn't keep up with the speed. There's actually in Danish, we work with, you had a stilling, a position, and now we talk about a job. And I actually think that is quite interesting to see that earlier on you talked about having a stilling, you were standing somewhere, that was where you were working, and now you have a job. So you could actually change it. You can do kind of the similar in English, having a position and having a job. And then we had the individualization beginning. So now we have the digitization. There are no borders. We are going from silos that we created during industrialization to actually having to think more holistically again. again, we are going from having a separate life and a work life to actually mixing them in a good way and a bad way. And we need to quickly adapt all the time. And then we also need a new, huge approach to innovation. And when I say innovation, I don't only mean that we as a society or as a company need to innovate, but actually every time we need to adapt to something new, when we are home or in a department at work or something, we actually innovate because we all the time need to see and translate things over and over again. And then things becomes very unpredictable. What happens in Ukraine, it has a very huge impact on us. What happens all over the place has a very huge impact on us. Right now, I think actually it is today, maybe tomorrow, that the government, Folketinget, they are debating a Danish proposal for having more legislation about for SoMe related to the kids. But the SoMe, they are not within a national border, so that doesn't necessarily help anything. It's at least it should be on an EU level, but now we are looking into how we can do something in Denmark, and it somehow doesn't really cope. It doesn't relate in what's actually going on. Okay, so what we can actually see is that we don't know what kind of skill sets we need within 20 years. We don't know what the job situation looks like in 20 years. That is extremely interesting, and it can also be a little bit frightening, depending on how you look at it. I hope that I'm going to stay at Hawaii, something like that, but at least having more time to have a free space instead of this wheeling around all the time, being so busy that we can see actually makes us sick right now. But we don't know. But we are so lucky that there are clever people who have been who has been looking into, okay, what are these skills? Somehow, what do they look like? And McKinsey and Company, they made this huge questionnaire analysis in 19 and 20, where they asked 18,000 people in, I believe it was 15 countries around the globe. And they came up with saying, okay, to sum up, we definitely need some people to be specialized within something. But most of us will need to be generalists. Most of us will need to be able to go from assignment to assignment to all the time add new skills. And what we're going to do and what we have to be good at is to do the things that we can automate. So that's just what we're going to do. They also created a set of deltas. They don't call them skills, because there are also attitudes within this. But they categorize them in 4 places: the cognitive, the interpersonal, self-leadership, and the digital. So much of it has to do with being good at cooperating, communicating, being critical, being able to self-lead, to take ownership of your life and your assignments, being able to coach others. And then, as a more specific thing, they narrow it down to the digital. It's very important to have the digital skills as well. Then we look at 21st century skills. And they are the skill set that education uses to see into the future. What kind of things do they need to educate children, young people for? And it's so we are so lucky that they look a bit similar. That I think that's a good thing. But again, they're looking into the critical thinking, creativity, innovation, collaboration, all the interpersonal elements, and then the digital skill sets. So there are definitely things that we can see that is some of the things that we need to do. They are still very blubbery, but but still we have something to navigate with. Andreas Schleicher from OECD, I think he says this very, very beautifully, that people need to have a compass. They need to be able to navigate within an ocean that is quite uncertain, both when it comes to our imagination, ethics, etc. So we actually need a compass. I think it's beautiful. I also think it's difficult. So we need interpersonal skills. We need to be able to innovate. We need to have digital skills. And it influences us all. So this means that it's not just some of us. It's not just the innovators or the IT developers who needs to have this. It's actually all of us in a way, of course on different levels, because some need to be able to use and understand technology, others they need to be able to develop it. And that we need everybody on board in that. And now it would seem as if I've gone crazy, because what does play has to do with anything here? But I actually think it has quite a lot to do, because having a playful mind makes us resilient, makes us able to, in an easier way, to adapt to things. So when I say play, I mean like a mindset. I don't mean go out to play or just gaming, but as an underlying mindset. How do we address life? How do we address tasks? How do we address people? Richard Schechner, I like his definition that playing is not an interruption of ordinary life. Hey, go out and play. But it's actually something that has to be with us all the time. When we are off, when we are working, when we are studying, everywhere we need this kind of playful mindfulness, or this playful way of thinking. And I do think that because having a playful mindset has to do with being resilient. It's actually easier, and flexibility, it's actually easier to come to different tasks, challenges, problems, if you have a ground solid belief that we will try to cope with this. This is not the same as being naive, but it has to do with how we actually address problems and trouble. It also gives us an attitude to life. Let's see if we can make this work. Let's see how we can solve this instead of being afraid. Because being afraid when things are changing so rapidly will make us be afraid all the time. It has to do with being able to play, having roles, creating a society around people. Because as we could see, the interpersonal skills are so really, really important. So being able to do this within a playful mindset will actually help all of us. And then, of course, creativity. Because we always need to figure out how can we solve this in another way. And that is everything from problems at work, code. How can we change this in another way? How can we create society in another way? How can we make things better in another way? So the creativity is very important. So we all need places where we can play, to rehearse and to remember to play. Or remember to say, okay, am I playing now? And actually, playing is not just soccer, or it can also be at work. You can also play at work. Not necessarily doing something that looks playful, but if you have the mindset of, hey, I'm in a flow. I actually think this is super interesting, and I'm able to use my skills, and I'm able to work with what I'm doing, and be creative with what I'm doing. That is play too. So I'll give you a couple of examples of where I'm doing working with play and playfulness. I mentioned Next Generation. That is a series of summits and conferences for professionals, librarians, teachers, pedagogical staff, cultural disseminators, scientists, researchers, and then I add them with the students and children. Because if they are supposed to be working with play and technology, they need to go beyond being in a silo. I am a museum, I am a library, I'm an adult, I'm a child. We need actually to do this together. And we need to listen to what the kids are saying, because that can actually also push all of us. Last week, I held a conference, and I had a 13-year-old hosting the event with me. And to be honest, when I was standing there being serious in English, and he started running around with the mic and asking people things without us actually, we hadn't agreed on that beforehand. But that made it a challenge for me, but it was a positive thing to do. Okay, this is what we do now, because the kid says that that's what we are going to do. He didn't ask me, but we're doing it anyway. And it worked. Because he gave into it. And I was not afraid of saying, okay, this is how we do it now. And then we have coding pirates, because I am the pirate queen. Coding pirates are for 7 to 17-year-olds. We started out as a grassroots organization. We started out 9 years ago because we saw a huge problem that kids didn't learn anything about technology in schools. So we said, okay, we need to do something. We need to teach the kids some technology. And we had actually quite a lot of IT professionals who were very interested in doing this. And also they needed a space where they could play, doing something else from when they were working. And we thought, okay, when we get technology in school, we'll just close down coding pirates, because then we've done what we needed to do. Yeah, right. So teknologiforståelse or technology in school, that is something standing on a shelf within a ministry. And whenever it will come out, I have no clue. But even if we get technology into the schools now, I think that we have a huge obligation to be there anyways. Because as kids go to music schools to learn more about music, or go to soccer clubs to learn more about soccer, we need a place where kids who are interested in technology can actually work with technology, play with technology. Besides being coding pirates, we also are the operator of First Lego League, which is this global innovation and robotics tournament where we are the Danish operator. So we are quite new as operators. We have had 1 year, and we had between 4,500 and 5,000 kids through the tournament last year. So many of you were Danish, so I think I will show you a video.
Det er mega fedt at være pirat.
Coding Pirates er et fritidstilbud, en klub, en forening, som er til for børn, der gerne vil være IT-kreative. Og IT-kreativitet, det er det her med at skabe og være kreativ og innovativ med teknologier. Så det er jo både coding, det her med teknologi, og så Pirates, det her med frihed og åbne vidder og ingen grænser. Formålet med Coding Pirates er, at det her skal være for alle, og ikke kun for dem, der alligevel vil vælge teknologi som retning, men også for dem, som ikke vidste, at det her faktisk var noget, der var interessant. Så det kan være kreative, visuelle og drenge og piger. Det er fuldstændig et fedt.
Coding Pirates' målsætning, det er at være et mødested for børn og for voksne, som gerne vil udvikle med teknologi sammen. Vi skal skabe et teknologisk vågemod.
Microsoft har faktisk været en af de første stolte sponsorer i Coding Pirates. Det er vi meget stolte af og meget glade for. Så bidrager vi også med lokationer. Vi inviterer hver tirsdag ind til en Coding Pirates klub, hvor mange Microsoft-frivillige lærer børn meget omkring også vores perspektiv på teknologien, men også bare generelt, at vi kan udbrede vores viden og have det sjovt med børn.
GOTO Pirates er en landsdækkende organisation, der består af lokalforeninger spredt rundt omkring i hele Danmark. Til dagligt ledelsen af en hovedbestyrelse, der er valgt af de lokale foreninger. De frivillige betyder alt for GOTO Pirates. Det er i ryggraden. Uden de frivillige vil GOTO Pirates ikke kunne fungere.
Jeg er frivillig hos Coding Pirates, fordi jeg har lyst til at give børnene et sted, hvor de kan komme og møde ligesindede og sidde og nørde med at lave spil. Jeg synes.
So this is extremely interesting for you, I see. I don't know, it works on my
Give børnene et sted, hvor de kan sidde og nørde.
Jeg er frivillig, fordi jeg får lov at lære børn lidt af det, jeg selv synes var sjovt, og måske selv har gået op i, da jeg var barn. Altså, jeg er vild med elektronik og programmering og mekanik, og her har man mulighed for at lære børnene det hele på én gang. Det synes jeg jo er helt vildt fedt. Man skal være frivillig, fordi det er sjovt. Det er jo sjovt at være sammen med børnene. Man har mulighed for at lære børnene nogle ting, og det synes jeg er jo fantastisk at få lov at bringe videre til næste generation.
Jeg kan godt lide at være pirat i Coding Pirates, fordi man får lov til at gå i dybden med programmering. Man kan være kreativ, og man får endda et rigtig godt spil ud af det, som man kan bruge senere hen. Jeg synes andre, de skulle være pirater i Coding Pirates, fordi det giver rigtig gode fremtidsmuligheder at være programmør. Og så er det mega fedt at lave spil.
Teknologisk vågemod.
Nørderi.
Udfordring.
Passion.
Hygge.
Erfaring.
Læring.
Opfindsomhed.
Fællesskab.
Mangfoldighed.
Sjovt.
Samarbejde.
Venskab.
Udvikling.
Kreativitet.
Frivillig engagement.
So that is one of the stories that we tell about each other, about us. Just to put a couple of numbers on us, well, Corona was a bitch. We were almost halved, but we are coming again. We will take over the entire country, I'm sure of it. We had a delegation from ministers from Singapore last week visiting us, so maybe we'll take on Singapore as well. But we are almost all over the country. We have so many kids who would like to be a part of GOTO Aarhus. And we see such a huge wish to understand technology, and both on a basic level, but also on a very specialized level. So we have kids who come in, they are part of one event or two events, they are part of one season, and then we have the guys and girls who are there for years and turns out to be really, really good. Again, Corona was a bitch, but again, we are coming up again. We have opened even more clubs in 23, and we have a lot on developing right now. But we have a problem. The problem that we have in the IT sector in general basis, it's difficult to bring on the girls in Denmark. We are doing what we can. We are trying. Having the operatorship of First League, that helps because they're school classes. So half of them are girls, and they have a party. They really love it. So it has to do with how we can actually get the girls in and stay there and actually feel that there's a space for them as well. So I have another little video about First Lego League. Har vi det? Ja, thanks. Well, you all understand what's written, right? So let me translate. So what happened here? So what happened here is that First Lego League is a competition where we have an annual theme, and the kids should create some kind of an innovation project. Last year it was superpowered, so they needed to do something with energy. This year is masterpiece, so they need to work more with the art in STEAM. So the artistic approach, the cultural approaches. They should do some kind of an innovation project. They should program a robot. They should solve some challenges on a table for robots, where they have created a lot of challenges that they need to build their robot to be able to do. And then they had a local tournament, and then they had the Danish tournament, and that was what you were seeing here. So they met up from all over Denmark, meeting up, having a competition within innovation and robotics. One of the teams just came home from the winners just came home from Houston, where they won a breakthrough prize in Houston. So they are like, yeah, super thrilled, of course, and that's so awesome. But Coding Pirates is made on a manifesto, because we believe that, of course, this is playing with the kids. This is the adults and the kids doing things together. But we have a thought with what we're doing, because we want to make a participatory way of working. We want the kids to be a part of this, and we want to create a place where the kids and the adults work together on creating stuff. We build on maker philosophy and design thinking, but we still do it very differently around the country, because it depends very much on which volunteers, which adults we have with us, both when it comes to what kinds of activities we do, but of course also with the mindset, how people are willing to work with themselves and in the collaboration with the kids, what kinds of skills they have beforehand. But we try to work very much on idea development, construction, and trying to be experimenting. So when they code, instead of saying, for instance, starting a season with game development, what kind of computer, what kind of game do I like? CSGO. Okay. Most of us in this room knows that it takes quite a lot of work and some skills to create CSGO. So it's just not realistic to be developing CSGO within a season from beginner. But it's a shooting game. So you're creating a shooting game. So what do you need to create a shooting game? And then actually the kids can create something quite basically within a season, where they learn to program. And it's still things that they think is super fun to work with. And it's at a level where they get a success. And it's not something where we drown them with expectations. So trying to see into what they actually think is very interesting. Then we try very much to see that we can have a dialogue about technology, how we can do things that are funny, doing experiments that we don't know will work. Maybe that it won't work. It doesn't matter. It's important anyway, because that's actually an important lesson, that things doesn't necessarily work every time. And maybe you need to go in another way. We also know it as adults. We need sometimes that things doesn't work, even though it's really a bummer, but we need that sometimes. And we try very much to work with a collaborative way of being together. It's not one kid, one screen. That is very much what we try to not do, because when they get up and they get older, they need to be able to collaborate with each other. So again, we are a place for everybody who would like to be a part of Coding Pirates, be a part of playing with technology, learning things yourself, teaching or playing, learning into the kids. When we think about the IT creativity, we are also very much into the Maker Manifesto, trying to say, okay, if it's broken, fix it. If it's not broken, build something, make it better. Work together without not continuously work separately. So all this thing where you're talking about that screens and everything, it makes people individual. No, it doesn't necessarily. It really depends on how we actually create activities. What we do in Coding Pirates, that's everything from robotics to electronics to 3D printing, animation, tinkering, game development, all kinds of things that we find interesting, and what our kids would like to do together with the volunteers, and what the volunteers would like to do. A couple of pictures from what we're doing. Humanoid game controlling. Playing on fruits. These are some things that we can do, like events. IT conferences. It's actually quite interesting to see that the kids, they love to go to an IT conference. It's not. I think it's little less than 2 months ago. I stood here, had a conference, and the kids, they were like between 9 and 13, sitting there listening to keynotes, and they loved it because a part of it was having this keynote, but then they were out in workshops as well afterwards. So, and that was playful for them because they could use their interest in a way that they don't normally use it. They could try something that they don't normally try in schools, etc., because there was something with a very specific way of thinking about something that they were interested in. Then we also make flipboard machines, flippers, arcade machines, ball tracks where we combine electronics and computer programming, all kinds of things that we can, where we can play and where we can develop all these skills for playing, and of course playing with technologies. But also to say that, as I mentioned, some of us, some of our kids turn out really, really good. The cyber security team, national team, we had 2 pirates as a part of members of the national cyber security team. And not everybody turns out to be like that, but that's not the point. Because the point is that we can help actually get a generation up and working with technology, understanding how to be a part of a digital world. We also do stuff like we have a travel. Andreas Mogensen, the astronaut, is going into space in August. So we are now doing activities within a space mission. We do cybersecurity. We do various kinds of elements in order to have something that is very dedicated to some kind of topic where they can be IT creative within. So a space mission that could both, I saw yesterday, a kid had 3D printed a new part for the space station. And when we asked, okay, what is that? That is for the house animals. That is for the cow, so that they can milk it, to get milk on the space station. There are some issues concerning that, I think, but like getting the cow up there. But that doesn't matter, because there was still a story. There was a thinking about it. There was an innovation about it, and a super beautiful part of a space station, 3D printed, created, moduled, and printed.